SpartanMag.com, VCast, Jim Comparoni, Rico Beard from, what do they call this now? It used to be Jack Murphy Stadium.
SDCCU Stadium.
Is that what it is?
The place where no one plays.
Nobody plays.
San Diego State doesn't play here. The Chargers don't play here. The Padres don't play here. It used to be Jack Murphy. Then it was Qualcomm. At the Super Bowl. I mean, the 49ers beat Bobby Ross and the Chargers right there on that field.
Bobby Ross still has a better resume than Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah.
He won a national championship, half of one. Anyway, that's something I've talked about before. I had to bring that up since you mentioned Bobby Ross.
Maybe not the Chargers, because nobody's ever played a home game, so I take that back. For people say, it wasn't that, so I apologize, but keep going.
I just bring that about Bobby Ross because it stuns people sometimes. Because in Detroit, Bobby Ross doesn't have that great a name. But his resume. Anyway, Michigan State, speaking of resumes, 10-3, wrapping up today, doing what they needed to do against a team that was a little depleted. Michigan State took a minute, get their legs a little bit, but then showed strength, took care of business, and I think showed some growth. Some of those sophomores that have been carrying them this year played a little bit better. Michigan State finishing out in grand fashion, in my opinion. Nice bowl victory for Michigan State to cap this season.
It was, because it didn't look that way. I mean, they get the ball, and LJ could have had a much better game. First play of the game, he takes it, he breaks a tackle.
Yeah.
He's one man to beat, and he trips on the grass.
Yeah.
If he just makes any type of move, that's probably like a 70-yard touchdown. Hell of a way to start. Drive stalls. And then, they get it back. Drive stalls. And then, Washington State goes down, kicks a field goal, 3-0. And they just seemed like Washington State seemed like they were in rhythm early. Michigan State just couldn't do anything with the dinking and dunking. They go forward on fourth down. They get a call on fourth down. It looked like it was incomplete. And they're like, well, no. He did get his foot in. And then all of a sudden, it just started clicking. And I'm sitting there watching the game because I couldn't sit in the press box. So I went down in the stands. And I'm sitting there talking to some people. And I'm like, you know what? If Dave Warner takes the lid off, the deep ball is there. Don't try to out Washington State, the Cougars. That's what they do. And then sure enough, all of a sudden they start stretching the field some. Felton Davis was so wide open. Brian Owerke is like, it was funny. He said, I've never been so nervous. That ball stayed in the air forever. And I was just like, Brian, please don't overthrow it. That's what Brian said. He was like talking to himself. Just don't overthrow it.
Because he has overthrown that pass earlier this year.
And you know what? And I can appreciate the fact that he admitted those mistakes. He's like, look, I missed a lot of open guys. And when I saw that, I said, I can't screw this thing up. Hit him right in there. Felton Davis catches it. And then it started to snowball. And then all of a sudden, you saw the confidence and the swagger on the Spartan sideline and the self-doubt on the Cougar sideline. And I said, if they could score right before halftime, they could put this team away. And you know what? Quite honestly, they wouldn't have had 17 points if Lewerke doesn't get knocked out. He gets hit, and I think, the team says, we got a 35-3 lead. We could probably set them down. And then, they scored. Okay, Brian, you're going back in.
I kind of thought Michigan State should have went off script there a little bit when they were up 28-3, 35. When he got hurt. I was kind of thinking, I'm halfway between. I know you're a foot on the throttle, on the throat type of guy, and I agree with that too. But can we find a different way to get in the end zone instead of exposing him to getting hit like that? And now it's Murphy's Law. Now the chances of that happening are low, but with the big lead, they did expose it because he had done a great job as part of the offense carrying the ball.
This is why I thought that either, I understand the whole Damian Terry. When Damian Terry scores a touchdown, that's great story. But look, if Messiah's going to be your quarterback up QB, this is the time. You're up.
I disagree because I think the game was still a little bit.
It was 35-10 when Damian threw the interception. And funny because the guy standing next to me says he never should throw the football ever again. I'm like, come on, you got a big enough lead. And boom, interception. He looks at me like, now do you see why? And then people start texting me, why is he throwing the ball? He's one-dimensional. He's basically a running back that's at the quarterback spot.
You can't trust him to throw it.
And there was still too much time left. That's a team that can score quickly. That's why I'm saying maybe see what Messiah could do.
He's worse.
Then you know what? That's bad recruiting because you don't have a backup QB, and that means that if Brian suffers an injury, the season is over. So that's on the coaching staff.
He almost had one there.
So I'm just saying that's on the coaching staff. If you're telling me that Messiah is that bad, that's on you. That's not on Messiah. That's on you. I think either you didn't develop him or you brought in subpar quality player. And I don't think that he's that bad. I don't. I think some of it may just be a little bit of sulking.
I think that at that point, Michigan State was still trying to win the game and melt clock, and they thought Terry was the best option. The last time Michigan State had a chance to put a backup
I would have rather seen Cody White. Go ahead.
At quarterback? The last time Michigan State had a chance to put in a mop-up quarterback, I think, was when they were blown out at Ohio State, and they played DeWeaver that day because he's an Ohio native, and they'll do that sometimes, like last year when they played Terry instead of O'Connor in Pennsylvania. But I think they were just like, they were into the bullpen, and they were like, this is our best chance to win. Went with Terry, went with his legs, threw the one interception. Terry made the tackle, to get that one on the ground. But I know that they're on script and they're running their best red zone plays and everything to try to punch it in one more time. I saw Lewerke get hit everyone's thinking, man, is that a concussion? And you only have so many concussions in your career. But me, I'm a negative Nancy on some of these things. But I've enjoyed this bowl game. I was like, Holly Bowl, whatever, we'll get out there, take care of Christmas, get out there. Once I got here, it's the Holiday Bowl has always been this. It's never tried to be anything, but as it's been around, it's gotten better and better to where you had a couple of top 20 teams out here today. It's an old, rusty stadium, which I kind of appreciate, and the community rallies around this a little bit, and they put together a halftime show. I enjoyed this bowl game, and it's nice. They won the trophy, and they're happy. And that's the way bowl games were supposed to be years ago when they invented bowl games, is to send a team home happy, put a cap on a season, and not have fans wondering about what could have been, and just be happy with a bowl victory. And I think this serves those purposes for this team this year.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's always a good time when you win. If they were on the other end of this and it was 42-17, you probably wouldn't be feeling this great. You probably be like, this place is a dump. I don't know why we played in this crappy-ass bowl game. And, yeah, you probably wouldn't have liked it. But when you win, you play in a shoebox. If you win, let's be realistic about it. But I do like how the team responded. I like how the team basically said, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to hold, that air raid offense to nothing. And they said, look, I think it was Fry was saying they basically had it was Demetrius Cooper. I talked to him, said they had 6 or 7 formations, and we knew when they went to those, we studied film. We knew, okay, this is what you have to be. You got to gang tackle. You got to try and tackle in space if you can. And Cooper had a big breakup with a running back. They did a little end around thing, and he catches the running back for like a 5-yard loss. When you can tackle in space, fine. If not, contain your guy. Help will come. Don't let him get past you. And they did a really good job. Falk didn't really do too much in this game. I don't know if he was hurt. I don't know.
He didn't play. That wrist, he didn't play the whole game, and that was a big deal. Helinski's a guy that they put in that Arizona game when that was starting getting away from them. But so Washington State was depleted. They didn't have their quarterback, and those 2 receivers. When I went back and watched Washington State games in the last couple of weeks, those 2 guys that are no longer on the team, kind of separated from the team. And I mentioned this on the board yesterday. Rico, those guys were good. I know they had 70 catches. Those guys were like Aaron Burbridge good. And they were the guys that they looked to on 3rd down. So you don't have those receivers. You don't have the quarterback. And Michigan State took care of business.
Well, there it is. I mean, rain and win, rain and delay of game, backup QB, receivers. That's why Michigan State won. They didn't win because they have talent. They won because they're the luckiest SOBs in the Big Ten in the nation.
Is that what they're going to say?
Of course. Yes, that's why. Well, you didn't have their main quarterback. Receivers are gone. How could you not win? So,
yeah. But they won convincingly. It got to 35-17 later.
But they blew out. This Michigan State handled their business. They went out there.
It's not their problem.
Right. It is not.
This is a Michigan State program that, by the way, in the Rose Bowl lost their defensive captain. Didn't matter. Stayed square. Got it done.
But we don't talk about that because that makes too much sense. But no, they went out there. They did what they had to do. They stuck to the game plan. They made adjustments to that game plan, and they just put Washington State on their heels. And I do like the fact that they did put their foot on the throat. And quite frankly, if Lewerke doesn't take those 2 hits, Michigan State probably could have put up a 50 spot on this team, and this final score could have been like 52-3 or 56-3,
and made people say, "Wow!" the next day, what's going on with this team?
Right. I mean, it really. I mean,
outside of the Big Ten,
humming. Yeah. When they scored, what was it? Terry scored the touchdown to make it 35-3?
3, yeah.
And then
you don't see that in bowl games with major conference teams. You might see that with App State against Toledo or something.
I got a question. How many times did they punt the ball? Twice. Punt the ball twice today.
That's not bad.
It's not bad at all. And one of them was late in the game with like a minute to go or so, and it was just like, run up the middle, run up the middle, run up the middle. They were already putting on the hats and the T-shirts, Jim.
Yeah.
So, really, for the record, they punted the ball one time.
Right.
That means that you imposed your will. And that it was a battle of styles, and State style won today.
And it was gradual, and I like the way Michigan State, the quarterback, I think Brian Lewerke grew, and the way they utilized him. He's been a good runner all year. Everybody knows that. And the tuck and run was part of what they had going early on, because if you're going to play tight man-to-man like they do in pressure, they're susceptible to getting hurt by running quarterbacks. USC lost to this team. They don't have a running quarterback. Stanford lost to this team. They don't have a running quarterback. Arizona's got a running quarterback. And Lewerke, when things were tight, moved the chains with some scrambles. Then they incorporated the quarterback sneak, some creative different ways to do quarterback sneak. Then that speed option, they started putting that in there, moved the chains on some third down speed option. That established a speed option. Then that speed option led to drop back touchdown because it undressed the secondary. It was a gradual, and it was built off Lewerke's talent, and he's got a wide spectrum of talent, and it's getting better and better. And I think Lewerke, I was watching Lewerke, he's been a sophomore all year and a good one. He looked like a junior tonight. A lot of players improved during bowl season. I think Lewerke improved. I think this guy, because that's the number 8 pass defense in the country, and you can see they're tight. They'll hold you like Michigan does.
Right.
And there's tight windows. And Michigan State went to some 50-50 balls and undressed them with some play.
That's why I said if you go deep, because they were built in that zone. I'm just gonna, once you go cross my face, I'm gonna pass you off to the next guy. But when you stretch that out, I can't pass you off. I got to now cover you. And I think in the games that Washington State has lost, teams have done that and said, you know what? I don't think you can cover us deep. And they really couldn't. Michigan State could have thrown the bomb all night long. That play was open, and you saw it over and over and over again. And early in the game, there were even passes that Lewerke was missing because he was trying to go soft underneath. And he would have, Stewart broke away from his guy down the middle of the field in the crease, never looked at him. And I guess they got in the headset and said, okay, Brian, we're going to try something new. We're going to throw deep, and it's going to work. And it did work. And you're right. This is a great springboard for this team. You can't help but feel good. You can't help but think that they're going to be a factor in the Big Ten East. Not saying that they're going to win it, but I think they're going to be one of the 3 teams. I think along with Ohio State and Penn State, that'll probably be the favorites. Now, I know the media will probably throw Michigan in there, but I will say no. Until you win something, you're not allowed to come in there. The past 3 East champions, or the past 3 Big Ten champions, are those 3 teams. And I think they're going to battle it out for that top spot in the East next year. I look at Michigan State. You got the favorable schedule. You got Lewerke coming back. You could add to his playbook. L.J. Scott says he's coming back.
But Michigan's undefeated every offseason.
Well,
they're the champions of the offseason.
But, right. And congratulations, you get a Monopoly thimble as your trophy.
They've never lost a game in the offseason.
Right. I said you get the Monopoly thimble for your trophy for the offseason. Because when you fill that thimble, that's about how much is worth of what they have, which is nothing. So I don't really buy that. That's why I leave that to the Joel Klatts of the world who say, well, they're the number 3 team. No, you're not. I look at this team. I look at Michigan State. You can add to the playbook, and it's kind of like that feeling you had when Cook kept coming back, and you knew the team was going to be good because you had your quarterback. MSU's one of the things that I think they need to solidify next year to take that next step: pressure off the edge and a backup QB, because you're living on borrowed time.
Right. Yeah.
If you don't have someone who could pull a Dwayne Haskins in the middle of your heated rival and come in there and win the game for you.
Especially if you're going to use his legs this much.
So that's those 2 things. You solidify edge rush, and you get a good backup quarterback. Because right now, honestly, I'd put Cody White in there. I'd feel better. I mean, I've seen him play. He's not the greatest of quarterback, but he'll get the job done. But you got nothing. Those 2 things will take a team from going good to great.
Spring is going to be interesting. If they let us watch some of they won't let us watch the scrimmages, but if we hear what's going on there, then we see the green-white game, see what Lombardi has compared to the other, because it's going to be a derby for number 2 quarterback. And I agree. there might be a time when you're going to need a quarterback to come out of the bullpen to win some games to be a champion. Ohio State's done it. Sometimes you need to do that. LJ Scott, they got to get that running game going consistently. This year it was inconsistent. LJ Scott showed some nice fire here at the end of the year.
Yeah, 110.
Madre London did a couple things tonight too.
Madre London did. He's probably the most upset when he heard that LJ is coming back. Like, oh, you got to be kidding me. I thought this was going to be my ball next year. So,
he's number 2 though.
Yeah, but you got to wonder, does he do the 5th-year transfer and go someplace where he could be the guy?
He could. I don't think he will, but that's always a possibility.
You got guys coming in. Weston Bridges is, he's chomping at the bit. They're taking their time with him, saying he's not going to. I don't think he's going to do anything in the spring. I think they're waiting to the summer. They're going to let him heal up because they figure he could be an integral part of this team. Now I know, in the world of recruiting and college football, if we're not saying your name, you're a bust. You're no good. But I caution people to wait and see. Let the kid come back before we put dirt and write his epitaph. I don't think that he's done. I think that he can come back. I think that they're doing this for a reason. If they didn't think that he was going to be that much, they would have started the clock already, and they're not.
Yeah, and Connor Hayward is still around. They think that they've got, he wasn't necessarily a true running back coming in, but he had a nice kickoff return today. He'll have a whole spring to develop at that position. He's already a better running back now than he was in August, so it'll be interesting to chart his progress going into the spring. As far as pass rushers go, I just wonder, they don't have a lot of scholarship room, but if there's some grad transfers out there, and because defensive end pass rushers, a lot of the pass rushers that are in the NFL come from small schools because they're late bloomer athletes a lot of times. It's that 6'5" guy that might have weighed 195 in high school, but then they go to Prairie View and become an NFL player.
Yeah.
I'd be scouring and looking in the MAC and looking at Conference USA.
If you can get one to go with Kenny Willekes, I think you're okay.
Oh, man.
Willekes... I think Brandon Randall is close. He's not quite. He's got the speed. He doesn't have the technique.
And he's not a long lever edge every down.
But you're right. If you can find
he's a third down.
Yeah, if you can find that one guy who just maybe played at Southern Utah.
Yeah, they're out there. They're out there.
And I got to be honest with you, and I got to give full credit to Jack Ebling. I don't know if he has it, but it's gonna sound weird. Maybe talk to Gavin Schilling and see, hey,
yeah,
he's got the height, he's got the arms, he's got the length.
There's no free throws in football. I wonder if he'd be more of a tight end type. Pass rushers are such.
His hands aren't that great. So.
Pass rushers.
And that basketball is bigger and round.
Pass rushers are such a unique.
I'm just saying,
skill set.
But you're right. I like your idea of scouring and trying to find that grad transfer guy. Who
you call your NFL scout friends because NFL scouts come through and just say, hey man, who's some guys you guys been looking at? That might be out there.
Yeah, who's that guy that right now is maybe a 5th or 6th round pick, but. Only because you haven't really seen him go up against. You like him, but the level of competition is so bad that you're like, I don't know if you're that good or they're that bad.
And then you got to put a little message in a carrier pigeon to take it to him because you're not allowed to contact people.
Right. So Jim, we're flying you down there.
You find if there's a junior defensive end that's like all MAC or all Conference USA, all Mountain. Well, maybe not even Mountain West. But even smaller. There's a guy out there. I don't know if they're open for it because they're so guarded about their chemistry. They like their chemistry, but they're going to be a good defense next year. Mm-hmm. But they're Shalik Calhoun away from being a great defense.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I don't know if they have that person on the team, but yeah,
that person plays for Mississippi State actually. Yeah. Montez Sweat. Yeah, you guys are getting tired of hearing me say that, but
they don't. They're missing that edge rusher, and you're good against. You'll be good enough to beat 7 to 8 teams with the defense that they have. But when you get into that Final Four, the really tough teams, that's why you can't. You won't be able to get to Haskins. Trace McSorley. James Franklin just blew that game. Penn State had more talent than Michigan State. Yeah. James Franklin just didn't know what to do with the team. He was driving, a Ferrari to the grocery store with Saquon Barkley in that game in East Lansing.
Oh, yeah, they misused him.
I can't stress it enough. It was one of those you say thank you and you walk away, but you're just like, What was he thinking?
And they were doing that for the previous 3 or 4 games where they misused his talent this year. But speaking of that edge rusher, when I watched Alabama play Auburn, this is the first time I saw Alabama, and since Saban's been there probably, where they needed to blitz to try to get pressure. They're not getting pressure with 4 anymore, and it makes their defense different.
And that's another place, man. If you could put that carrier pigeon out there, maybe you go to the Alabama and find that 3rd or 4th string defensive end who is disgruntled because he never got his shot.
They may not have that because their defense is just a little bit down in that category right now, and that's why they're not themselves.
Go to Clemson, go to LSU, Clemson. Go to some of these schools where they got all these big 5-star kids who are just kind of been sitting there for 3 years, waiting for their chance. Kind of like Deshaun Hand when he was at Alabama, he was this top player and he just kind of faded into obscurity.
Right. I thought Michigan State hit hard. You're talking about Washington State. When Michigan State played a lot of deep zone, they mixed that in. Michigan State mixed their coverages a lot all year, and they did it tonight. And I know they didn't see Falk in the whole thing today, and they're giving up some completions. Not a lot of it got loose, but Michigan State changed their pictures enough. It wasn't the old, just play soft quarters and let them complete 16 passes to the slot all night. Change it up just enough. But like Fry said, Washington State, if things are covered deep, they'll check it down to the running back a lot. They've got more running back receptions than anybody in the country. So Michigan State was giving that up. But then they were tackling and hitting.
Right.
That's the hardest I've seen Michigan State hit all year.
Right. You know what? Because it basically became just a run play. Okay, you did all of that stuff. The play broke down. You threw it to the running back. 2-yard game, 3-yard game.
With hits, hard hits.
All right, so he took the punishment, but you looked at, okay, that was just a running play. You did all of the smoke and mirrors for 3 yards. So, no, you're right. They swarmed. They tackled in space. They looked like a team that was focused. And I was worried. Holiday Bowl, you got passed over. Fans were upset. Oh, my God. Look at it. Blue wall, blah, blah, blah. Jim Harbaugh. I wondered how much that affected this team. They showed me they were initially upset. They shook it off. I don't know. Maybe we should thank the San Diego reporter who kind of ticked off D'Antonio asking him the Harbaugh khaki question, because that was a team that played with an edge. They played with the chip. They didn't want to leave here without that trophy.
I think 3 things prevented it, and I personally was not worried about them being focused for this game. 1, I think they wanted to do it for D'Antonio genuinely. 10 wins for the program, 100 wins for him. Number 2, I think when they put on the Washington State film and saw them beat USC, said, okay, we got a game. This is for real. Both sides of the ball had challenges, so I think that snapped them in, and I forget what number 3 is.
That's okay.
Number 3. All right, so I think Felton Davis is taking some steps too. He was a guy. We'll wrap this up in a second, but
for people asking, is Felton Davis leaving? Where's he going? Where's he going to go?
I talked to him during bowl practice about
Bowl?
about 2-3 weeks ago, and he says he genuinely feels he needs to improve his ability to get off press coverage. And I thought that was really mature, self-evaluation. And he's talked to Plaxico Burress about that.
Jim, that goes into the no bleep category right there.
And Plax had the same problem.
Right, but it's like, is he going to go pro? Like, pro what? Pro golf? He's not ready for the NFL. I mean, like you said, he's got talent, but he's got a lot of things he has to work on. So,
and he knows that.
Right, and which is smart. Now,
that's great.
That's what looking at the team. Yeah, this team is loaded. This team could easily go out and probably win you 9-10 games next year. You get that edge rusher, and now you're talking about maybe a playoff spot, winning the Big Ten. That's the difference. The margin of error in the Big Ten East is so slim that you have to be able to compete against Ohio State. You got to go on the road to Penn State this year. You have to be able to do that. You got Michigan at home. You got everything in front of you. So, and you get Arizona State in the middle of a coaching change, which was a disaster change, but yeah, I plan on going to that game too. So
I'm still trying to think of number 3. I can't think of it.
That's okay, man.
I got all spring to try to figure that one out. Anyway, we appreciate your time. Rico Beard here in San Diego. Good bowl game, good atmosphere. This is a good memory for Michigan State fans, in my opinion, and the ones that were here. A lot of West Coast Spartans. I've been watching the Michigan State and Washington State fans they got along today. Rico, I was up and down the Gaslight District or whatever it's called.
Well, they're both the 2 disrespected teams in the state,
and they're just like
You ever
chill.
been to UW? They are the West Coast Michigan. I mean, the fact that they literally tailgate on the water because their stadium's built on water. There's people in yachts and boats and wine and cheese crowds. So, yes, they're the West Coast Michigan. Just flip that M over to the W. Instead of blue, it's purple. But that's why the two teams get along, because they kind of have common enemies.
And they just seem like a lot of the same type
They're
of people.
blue-collar team. Right. They're blue-collar people.
A lot of people having fun, smiling down to the restaurants.
Yeah.
And I think that it was a good experience for the Michigan State West Coast. And the West Coast mobilization, been out here for the Rose Bowl, came out here and played Cal Berkeley a few years ago. Those West Coast Spartans who've watched Michigan State have success from afar for a long time, when they get a chance to watch them, they're showing up. And I thought there was a good showing of Michigan State fans today. What were your thoughts about it? There's a good number of green here.
It was. The stadium was about 50-50. Somebody asked me, and when it was a game, this side of the stadium was all Michigan. Behind the state bench was green and white. That side was all burnt red and gray, or whatever they are. And it was kind of split down the middle. It was 50-50. And as State started progressing, more Cougar fans left. But no, they showed up to this game. They were looking. The West Coast, they don't get a chance to really see them. So while most people back in East Lansing and the Detroit area and the Grand Rapids area was upset, they were happy because, you had people who drove in from Phoenix. You had people who drove from L.A. You had people who drove in from Las Vegas. This was, this was a cool game for them. This was kind of like if MSU played in Indianapolis. A lot of people from around the Midwest could have gotten to that game. That's why they represent well in the Big Ten championship game, except for the year Iowa bought up all the tickets because they clinched like 4 games to go.
I think they said 40,000 people today, maybe 35. I think it was over 30, maybe 35.
It was over 30.
So if there were 35,000 here, half would be like 17,000. You think there's 17,000 Michigan State fans here? Maybe 12 to 15?
Yeah.
That's not bad.
So,
not bad. I remember what number 3 is. The third reason why I thought Michigan State was going to be focused for this
game. We weren't
game
going to quit until you came up with this.
Is because they're a young team, and a lot of the guys haven't played in a bowl game. So to them, it was like, I don't care, bowl game, tails wagging, I'm ready to play, I'm ready to build. So I thought that D'Antonio, the film, because Washington State was good. And thirdly, it's a young team that does not take this for granted, want to come out and play again. And the Holiday Bowl, it's a bowl that it's never tried to get out of that late, that between Christmas and New Year's night game thing is what they do. They've never tried to make the jump like the Gator Bowl did or like the Peach Bowl did successfully. But it's a top 20 game, and it was cool. And Michigan State took care of business. And we'll be interested to see what goes on now in terms of a couple more recruiting slots to fill in February. Heading toward winter football discussion on Underground Bunker. That'll be fun. And keeping an eye on possibly grad transfer, pass rusher. That might be interesting. Any chance D'Antonio said that at the signing day press conference? You know how he said that? How he said just to put out there for a defensive end that might be out there. Remember when he said that? Maybe that was a carrier pigeon.
I think they're going to.
Is that the carrier pigeon?
No, I think right now they're open to see what's going to happen.
There's the Chapman kid in Georgia.
The Chapman kid, the good news, he's visiting, but he's visiting too early in my opinion. Unless you lock him up that weekend, it's not even the Michigan weekend for basketball, it's the weekend afterwards, which I thought was that's not a good weekend, but I don't know. Or you may just have a guy who falls into your lap, a highly recruited kid who space is limited at the other schools, and he's like, Michigan State is often lost out to kids going to their fallback or compromise school. Michigan State could be a compromise school, especially coming off of something like this, where you get a kid who was thinking Alabama or Clemson or whatever, but they filled up the class and said at the last second, hey, coach, you got a spot for me. So we'll see.
All right. I appreciate your time, Rico Beard. Great to see you out here on the West Coast. For Rico Beard, Jim Comparoni, been watching the VCast from the old Jack Murphy Stadium with the Spartans, SpartanMag.com. All right.